Um, for those of us among us who are organizers, should I start now? Or those of us in the audience? Okay, so let's start. So firstly, thanks so much for being here today. I'm gonna just get the simultaneous text going in the conversation. So basically, I'm from the National Institute of Education in Singapore. We are because Singapore is such a tiny place, we're the only school of education there. And today I'd like to share some of the work that we did last year. Yeah. So as I said today, I'm sharing a learning environment which my team and I developed last year as a response to the new protocols imposed by COVID. Um, and So we named our approach the socially responsible behavior through embodied thinking project, and we developed SORBET because we were interested to help children and learners understand the need to invest effort in practicing the new habit of social distancing beyond simply because they were being told to do so by figures in authority, for example, their teachers, their parents, and government policymakers. So, in other words, we wanted to help children and learners to understand the importance of social responsibility in more authentic ways. So, specifically, my team and I defined the problem of insufficient authenticity in the following ways. So, as you can see from the slide above, um, firstly, we believe there's a disconnect between the discipline of social distancing and any positive or negative feedback to our efforts. By disconnect, I refer to like a lag of time between when we decide to do something and the feedback that we receive from it. And secondly, we believe there's currently no practicable way for us in real life, in inverted commas, to have visual augments with respect to our personal radius of safe distance. So this question of visual augments, I think, has come up a number of times in the conference with respect to the affordances or the contributions that virtual worlds and immersive environments, such as the one we're in now, can play. So, because all of us present today are at VWBPE, we already know that a powerful affordance of such immersive environments is the way well-designed environments can catalyze embodied cognition. Um, the notion of embodied cognition has a rich base in the literature. For example, in For example, in James G's work on projective identity, which potentially helps us understand how embodied interactions in the avatar world carry beyond the game-based world to everyday interactions. So the design of the project has also been influenced by the work of my own team with respect to the affordances of learning for immersive environments, as published in an old paper on what we call the 6 learnings framework. So I think what's important for us to understand is that the intervention that I'm describing today, the SORBET Project, is actually more than just a technology, but it's more an approach to designing for learning. So by the way, before I forget, I've laid out in the in the area in front of us a couple of objects. One is like the tall white one is something I bought from the marketplace. It's actually a hand washing simulation, and the other one is just basically a dispenser. Yeah, so feel free. So in its complete form, the project comprises 2 complementary halves, namely a scripted in-world system which records avatar interaction while a virtual virus is passed within the community, and post in-world discussion in either face-to-face or remote home-based learning contexts. So here you see a couple of screenshots from the first half of the intervention, namely the in-world interaction where a virus is being passed around. So the after the in-world activity, as I said, there's the second half, and that discussion is enabled through analysis of records of interaction. So I'm going to continue showing a couple of shots from the in-world activity to show you how teachers in Singapore have attempted to contextualize the activity with respect to the learner's needs or the age cohorts or the disciplinary domain of the subject. So the colored circles appear from time to time, and they are coded according to whether someone else is encroaching within your safe distance. So next, I can show you some screenshots of the second half of SORBET, namely the post-in-world discussion around the analysis of records of interaction. So here, for example, my camera is not really adjusted on the screen, but basically the next couple of shots, and there won't be a lot, are just examples of the dashboard where teachers can facilitate small group discussions or whole class discussions with their students regarding regarding, like, say, how patient 0 continued to spread the virus as he interacted within the environment over periods of time, because the data is presented by date and timestamp. So in summary, the design of the approach is summarized in this diagram, which I'll talk through a little bit. On the left half, you will see that it represents the embodied half. So as the subpoints say on the left half, the embodied half promotes learner agency, as all in-world avatar environments do. The embodied half also provides a visual augmentation of one safe radius, which appears from time to time. And the embodied half is also customizable in terms of parameters, such as the duration of the activity and the probability of infection. So this can suit a variety of different classroom formats. So as for the dialogic half, which is on the right side, which follows the in-world activity, the dialogic half does not require the same degree of network infrastructure as the in-world half, of course. And it presents data and scalable views to the learner, basically via cloud-based spreadsheet hosting services such as Google or Microsoft or the major ones. And because they are basically spreadsheets of interaction data, they can be easily exportable for subsequent representation and evaluation depending on the needs of the learners and also on the different devices that they may have. So thus far, SORBET has been enacted in several schools in Singapore in subjects such as mathematics, geography, and social studies. And of course, as we know from, because we are from VWBPE, it is also compatible with learning across borders and time zones. So in mathematics, for example, the focus of the lessons was on helping learners understand descriptive statistics, the representation of data, graphical literacy, and probability theory. In geography and social studies, the emphasis was less on the underlying mathematical principles and more on the spatial and social consequences of the diffusion through a community. So SORBET has been conducted by teachers for their students, as well as among older students, by students themselves amongst their own peers. In terms of learner demographics, learners have ranged from grade 5 to college graduates. And as I said, it's compatible with a variety of face-to-face and home-based learning environments. And because it's basically an infrastructure of data management, it can be actually used in Roblox or Minecraft or OpenSim, and as well as we are currently developing a Unity build. If you can excuse me for a while, I'm just trying to, yeah, okay, good. So yeah, I was trying to look at my look at which slide is being shown on the screen. So we conducted a formal study last year, and So among more than 100 grade 8 students who responded to questions on a Likert scale, data showed that there were statistically significant positive differences in responses to questions such as difference to how my country responds to the COVID pandemic. I think about how my actions affect other people. So the following affordances of the in-world activity emerged through analysis of focus group transcriptions. So as most of us know, a well-designed learning environment within a virtual world is ludic in nature. It's social, it's exploratory, and it also has connections with the real world. So these are good guidelines for any learning activity which involves immersive environments or virtual worlds, game-based worlds. So as an example, let's take the utterance from a grade 7 student, which she exclaimed during the dialogic half of Sorbet. The slide above shows a representation from the early days of the pandemic, which was an analysis of just how far the real COVID virus could spread within a public transportation system. So this young man said, "I should never have gone to that bus with you." He was saying this to his friend, and he said this spontaneously when presented with information about how he contributed to this, or how he was infected when the virus was being passed around. So on the surface, this is a simple statement, but I would like to deconstruct it a little bit further, and I would like to suggest that it is So I'd like to suggest that it is agentic, normative, reflexive, and specific. How so? Agentic would be, I should never have gone to that bus with you. So it's the first person. Normative, because it is I should never have. So it implies a value judgment. It is reflexive because it was expressed in the past tense, reflecting on his actions. I should never have gone to that bus. And it is specific. I should never have gone to that bus with you. It is reflective of his, or it is representative of his reflection on a specific action that he took. In addition to those four, it is all the statement I should never have gone to that bus with you is also projective implicitly, because there's an implicit well, one might argue that there's a tacit implication that he might be a little bit more careful next time. So in closing, here's a longer quotation from another student, which I won't be able to put into the text transcript because it'll be cut off, but I'll just read it out. So I need to adjust my camera a little bit. So this student said, I had a very good experience with the SORBET project. It was a really fun game, which I enjoyed. One of the interesting aspects of the game is that I was able to interact with my friends in the game, and the interactions would be recorded. This recording would be used in the virus part, which is another unique aspect of the game. Overall, I think the game was really interesting and unique because being able to interact with your friends is a very uncommon thing to see in these types of educational games. This taught me about social distancing as it showed how fast the virus can spread from one person to many others. As for real life now, as COVID-19 is a real virus that is also deadly, it is important that we students learn about how to prevent the spread of it. So I am very grateful for your time today. As you can tell, I'm coming to the end of my slides. So I would like to close with a few more words from yet another student from a state-funded school in Singapore, and this is what he said. So overall, I found the experience enjoyable. At first, when we were tasked to find figures with different shapes and colors, I found it suspicious since we were told that it was a math workshop. But finding the figures required little to no math skills. After they announced the actual aim a few days later, I understood why they called it a math workshop. The project taught me that social distancing reduces the chance of unknowingly infecting or being infected by others. So yeah, so some helpful background context to the last, that final quotation from the student was that in general, we recommend to teachers that for the first round of SORBET with any given population, the facilitator not tell the students that a virus is being passed around. Yep. Okay. So yeah, so instead we work closely with the facilitator or the teacher to come up with an appropriately authentic activity to encourage social interaction, such as, in this case, a treasure hunt. And that brings me to the end of my sharing. I'll just click through the remaining few lines of text and I'll read them out. It won't be very many. So regarding what the student shared, what I liked most was that he expressed that he was able to identify for himself a disconnect between the ostensible activity and its curricular context. He found it puzzling that what was done within the formal context of a math lesson was actually just looking for treasure. So to me, I like this because it resonates, because part of my team's larger portfolio of learning interventions is the focus on the intuitions of learners, as opposed to the intuitions of, say, experts. But that's a story for another day. And with that, I will end. And thank you again for your time and attention. Wow, I'm very flattered that so many of you stayed to the end. Thank you so much. I realize it's been a long day for you. Good to take questions. Uh, do try the demo. You could try wearing it. It won't crash your avatar. It's been tested. The demo will give you an idea of how the social distance, the safe radius is reinforced subliminally, but the color codes in the demo don't actually mean anything since they're not interacting with other safe radiuses. So, say for future work, for those of you who are still present, um, we're, we are working actively on a build in Unity, which will therefore be able to take us into various handheld device platforms, and we've already been testing it with good success. We are really happy to collaborate with any of you because obviously COVID's an international problem which does not respect borders. And we've been very fortunate in Singapore to be able to open up our schools relatively early, but we do realize that's not necessarily the case elsewhere. Do the chronemics in the demo and hi or yeah, I'm not sure how to OJ Orange, right? Okay, yeah. Hi, OJ Orange. I'm not familiar with the word chronemics, but I'm assuming that that by chronemics maybe it's got to do with whether the virus in whether the virus in the simulation actually is modeled upon empirical evidence of how COVID diffuses in real life? The answer is no. It's not. We're not. So basically, this sorbet originated last year as a response to a request for help from mathematics teachers. So they wanted basically to help their students understand probability theory. So that's why the early days of Sorbet, we focused a lot on helping the teachers to customize the probabilities of infection, and therefore we did not align it closely to what was at that time very little known of how COVID actually spread. As Sorbet has evolved over 2020, 2021, we are actively taking it into other subjects because personally, I myself am not a I'm not a math educator, but I'm a social studies, citizenship education person, and I've been working with my own students at the school, at the university where I teach, to help them take them into geography and social studies. Yeah, I'm not sure if that's answered your question. Please let me know if I did not. The unit of time in the demo. So the unit of time is another customizable aspect of Sorbet, um, because we would like it, and also we are kind of, I mean, both my own team as well as the Department of Education here in Singapore, they try to encourage teachers to adopt learning interventions within the context of the formal curriculum, as opposed to say after school activities. Their stance is that if teachers adopt interventions such as this during the formal curriculum, yes, it's a bit more of a risk, but also the benefits are that the students take the whole activity more seriously, and there's a lot more buy-in if the results go well. So anyway, so typically our curricular periods are about 35 minutes each. The longer ones are about 70 minutes. So therefore, we give the teachers the affordance of customizing the duration of the activity in Sorbet to suit their needs. Oh, thank you for asking the question, OJ. So maybe, well, just to get the keep the juices flowing at the end of your day, it's the beginning of my day. But just to keep the juices flowing at the end of your day. So for geography, for example, the activity is not. Yeah, the activity still. For younger learners, the activity can still involve a treasure hunt, but this time it's like charting on a map of the area on a like a mini map or on the world map of the charting out where the various tokens are to be found, or conversely, the teacher can give them a map of where the tokens are to be found, and the learners practice skills such as finding their bearing, distance, and so on and so forth. For older learners, for which a treasure hunt may not be so applicable, what we've asked them to do in the context of geography is to say give them a blank Google document so that it's a shared space, and then get them to sketch out their the environment on. In other words, get them to do a co-constructed, collaboratively designed plan view of the environment as they are exploring in real time. So that is the kind of like decoy activity, to get them to basically any activity which gets them doing stuff together. It could be collaborative building, for example, and that has been done by one pair of some of my students with their own friends. They did a collaborative building activity since SL is so suited for collaborative building. And one of the slides also showed a soccer activity. So it's quite flexible in that sense. And yeah. So I'm just gonna hang around here until the end of the session, because I'm not sure how many of us are actually here behind the avatars, and actually how many of you have maybe doing other stuff. But I'll just hang around here in case anybody has any questions. You're welcome, Serena. And Sakura, どういたしまして。あはは。そうですよ。